Part 8. The ultimate showdown. The Empire of Celestia decides to attempt to research the quantum fusion core, a revolutionary energy generation technology that harnesses the power of quantum mechanics for sustainable and powerful energy production, and thus, the attempted research is begun. The Celestial Fleet departs from the Imperial capital, its mighty warships forming a formidable armada. Dr. Erebus, seeing the fleet as a threat to his own plans, decides to send his most trusted agent, Nemesis, to infiltrate the fleet and gather information on its capabilities and strategies. Nemesis, a master of stealth and espionage, boards one of the smallest ships and begins his mission. Nemesis successfully infiltrates the flagship and navigates through the ship's tight corridors, avoiding detection by the crew. He finds a secret compartment containing detailed plans for the attack on Erebium and learns that the Emperor has equipped the fleet with a powerful new weapon, codenamed Nebula. The weapon is capable of creating a temporary wormhole that can be used to transport a massive asteroid directly into an enemy target. Meanwhile, Dr. Erebus prepares his own counterattack. He activates a device known as the Erebus engine, which creates a spatial distortion around the Erebusian base, rendering it invisible to the naked eye and most detection methods. He then gathers his forces and prepares to launch a surprise attack on the Celestial Fleet. As the war escalates, both sides begin to unleash new technologies and strategies. The Celestial Fleet, under the command of Seraphim and Reaper, engages the Erebusian forces in a series of intense space battles. The battles are fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. However, the Erebus engine proves to be a game changer, allowing the Erebusians to strike at will and disappear into the void before retaliation can be launched. Meanwhile, the Empire of Celestia's progress on the quantum fusion core is proceeding at a rapid pace. The research team, led by Dr. Seraph, has made significant breakthroughs in harnessing the power of quantum fluctuations. This new energy source promises to revolutionize the Celestial Fleet, granting it unprecedented speed and firepower. However, it also attracts the attention of Dr. Erebus, who sees it as a direct threat to his own ambitions. As the battle rages on, Seraphim and Reaper find themselves in a desperate struggle against the Erebusian forces. They manage to inflict heavy losses on the enemy, but the Erebus engine continues to wreak havoc. The battlefield is littered with the charred husks of once powerful ships, their crews dead or dying. Nemesis, Dr. Erebus's most trusted agent, remains at large somewhere within the chaos.
The Empire of Shadowstein, their emperor, Dark Emperor Alpha, still in self-imposed exile, decides to attempt to conquer the planet of Mars, now known as Erebium, and thus will have to go head-to-head with Dr. Erebus and his Erebusian Empire, and thus the attempted conquest of Mars Erebium by the Empire of Shadowstein is begun, as Dark Lord Lothar, Dark King Mordecai, and Dark Queen Lilith begin their assault on the planet. They are faced with a new threat, one they have not encountered before, as Dr. Erebus has unleashed a new race of beings, the Erebusian Dragons, and they must now face off against them. The Erebusian Dragons are as deadly as their name suggests, and it is only through the combined efforts of the three factions that they are able to defeat them. But those mainly are faced by the main forces of the Empire of Shadowstein, leaving the three former advisors to have to face Dr. Erebus and his three most powerful minions, his right-hand man Nemesis, a master of infiltration and skilled combatant Phantom, a powerful and skilled illusionist, and Silara, a powerful and skilled sorceress, leading to Dark Queen Lilith facing down Silara, while Dark King Mordecai faces down Phantom, and Dark Lord Lothar faces down Nemesis. But that leaves no one to fight Dr. Erebus, so the main forces of the Empire of Shadowstein are forced to just throw themselves at him to at least keep him distracted and occupied, despite them being unable to in any way injure him. Dark Queen Lilith and Silara exchange blows, their magic clashing and sparking, their blades slashing and parrying, their bodies dodging and weaving, until finally Silara makes a mistake, opening herself up to a devastating counterattack from the Dark Queen, which sends her flying through the air, her body crashing into the ground with a thud, her eyes widening in surprise and pain before she closes them. her body slowly going limp and lifeless. Meanwhile, Dark King Mordecai and Phantom are having a magical and very confusing to follow duel of magic and illusions. Foolish mortal, Phantom cries, his voice echoing through the battlefield. You cannot hope to stand against my mastery of the arcane arts. He gestures grandly, and a dozen illusions of himself appear, surrounding the Dark King. Dark King Mordecai then grins and chuckles. You are calling me immortal, he asks, before then snapping his fingers, causing hundreds of illusions of himself to appear around Phantom, and his mere dozens of illusions of himself, as he then moves his arms out to his sides as his many illusions become physical and begin charging up dark magic, before converging into one giant one which he then fuses with. I learned this trick from an old friend, he then says, before then mimicking the attack used 281 years earlier by the Storm Dragon to defeat the last, championed by launching a massive ball of electric dark energy at Phantom, and his mere illusions of himself. Phantom gasps in surprise as he's forced to focus on the attack, only to then realize that the illusions he created to surround the Dark King were all just that, illusions, and that he's left wide open and defenseless as the Dark King's attack strikes true, sending him flying through the air, his body crashing into the ground as his eyes widen in shock and pain before he closes them, his body slowly going limp and lifeless. Meanwhile, Dark Lord Lothar and Nemesis are locked in a savage battle, their blades flashing and sparking, their bodies dodging and weaving as they fight for dominance and control of the battlefield. Nemesis, skilled in infiltration and espionage, is quick to spot the weaknesses in Dark Lord Lothar's defenses and exploits them ruthlessly, landing a series of powerful blows that force Dark Lord Lothar onto the defensive. Dark Lord Lothar then replicates a move he did as the newly minted the Dark Lord 281 years ago to defend against the Vampire Queen by unleashing a wave of darkness that then knocks Nemesis off balance. Then he reconstructs his shattered sword from back then and applies dark power to it, and along with said dark power unleashes the electrical energy left in, with from it clashing with the Storm Dragon's charged attack from back then, which would have destroyed the entire mountain the fight had taken place in, and then more for 100 miles. And he unleashes this mixture of new and old darkness with old electrical storm energy in it. Ball of energy towards the paralyzed and off-guard Nemesis point blank. The impact of the attack sends Nemesis flying back several yards, slamming into the ground with a tremendous force. His body lies motionless for several heart-stopping moments, before finally convulsing and twitching spasmodically. The Dark Lord stands over his defeated rival, sword still held aloft in triumph as Nemesis struggles to rise to his feet, his movements now weak and labored. Dark Lord Lothar then engulfs Nemesis with a wave of darkness, just like Shadow King Mordecai did back then to heal, empower, and resurrect him way back then. But this wave of darkness instead went into Nemesis' body and destroyed it from within. Nemesis' eyes widen in shock and agony as he feels his body being consumed by the darkness. He tries to scream, but no sound comes out. His limbs grow weak and numb, and he collapses to the ground, convulsing violently. Finally, after what seems like an eternity of pain, Nemesis' body goes limp, and he stops moving altogether. And now, Dark Queen Lilith, Dark King Mordecai, and Dark Lord Lothar, having defeated Dr. Erebus' strongest minions, all step up to Dr. Erebus himself to attempt to defeat him and finish this conquest. Dark Queen Lilith approaches Dr. Erebus, her emerald eyes glinting with determination. You have done enough harm in this world, she says, her voice cold and commanding. It is time for you to face justice. Dark King Mordecai steps forward, his face a mask of concentration as he readies his spells. I have studied your magic, Dr. Erebus, he says, his voice echoing through the chamber. I know your every trick and illusion. day, you will pay for the pain you have inflicted upon us all. Nemesis' broken body lies still, his spirit finally freed from the torment it had endured. Dark Lord Lothar turns away from the fallen figure, his gaze meeting that of Dark Queen Lilith. Together, he says firmly, "We can end this." Dr. Erebus then bursts out laughing and knocks the trio back about a dozen feet simply by unleashing a burst of celestial energy from his omnipotent body. "You fools," he cries, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Do you truly believe you can defeat me? I have lived for millennia and seen empires rise and fall. Your pathetic attempts to bind me are nothing more than child's play." Dark Queen Lilith narrows her emerald eyes, her lips curling into a snarl. "Then we shall show you what true power looks like," she says, her voice cold and determined. Dark King Mordecai takes a deep breath, steadying himself against the force of Dr. Erebus' attack. Yes, he agrees. "Together, we will bring you down." He raises his hands, fingers splayed wide as he begins to chant in a language long forgotten by most. Around them, the air crackles with energy as dark tendrils of power begin to coalesce. The power of the void. Mordecai intones, "Shall be our ally." He flicks his wrist, sending a bolt of dark energy streaking toward the mad scientist. Dr. Erebus' celestial powers then form a barrier surrounding his body very specifically, effortlessly blocking the bolt. You'll have to try a lot harder than that if you hope to make this interesting for me, let alone stand a chance. Dr. Erebus states very matter-of-factly, yet while chuckling evilly. Dark Lord Lothar steps forward, his eyes narrowed in determination. "Then allow me to attempt to pierce your defenses," he says, raising his sword high above his head. He takes a deep breath, focusing all of his energy on the task at hand. "By the power of darkness, I command you to stand down." Dr. Erebus blitzed Dark Lord Lothar faster than he can possibly react, and sends him flying with a basic and casual yet sadistic backhand. Dark Queen Lilith sees this and growls in anger, focusing her own powers on trying to heal Lothar from afar. Her magic, however, is blocked by Dr. Erebus' barrier surrounding him. Mordecai, enraged by the attack on his friend, charges forward and attempts to strike at Dr. Erebus with all of his might. His sword meets resistance as if it were made of solid stone, and he too is sent flying backwards by the celestial energy emanating from the madman. Dr. Erebus then appears in front of Dark Queen Lilith and prepares to backhand her head clean off. Meanwhile, on the Shadow Planet, Dark Emperor Alpha can suddenly sense this all occurring and instantly begins flying off into space too, somewhere back on Marceridium. Dr. Erebus is about to backhand Dark Queen Lilith's head clean off with a single blow. No, Lothar cries out, rolling to his feet as quickly as he can. He ignores the pain in his body and focuses on stopping the madman before he can deal a fatal blow to Lilith. But then, Dr. Erebus' hand is blocked and he is then slapped aside with a hit that actually somehow hurts him. One by a tendril of darkness. Dark Emperor Alpha has arrived on the planet to save his former advisors, his friends. Lothar looks up at his savior, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you, Alpha. We were losing hope." Dark Emperor Alpha just looks down at him with his completely pitch-black eyes of darkness. Then Dr. Erebus attempts to punch him, which is swiftly blocked by one of Dark Emperor Alpha's tendrils of darkness. "You think you can harm me, you insignificant insect," Dr. Erebus sneers, still acting with bravado after your full power punch just got blocked and did approximately nothing. Odd, most wouldn't be that foolish, Dark Emperor Alpha responds, his voice echoey and dark. Then I shall show you the true meaning of fear," Dr. Erebus says, his voice dripping with malice. He then charges at Dark Emperor Alpha, his body glowing brightly with celestial energy. The ground shakes from the force of his charge as he attempts to use his momentum to overpower the Dark Emperor. Dark Emperor Alpha quickly blocks, and dodges his whole combo before then drawing blood from Dr. Erebus with a single casual backhand, hurting Dr. Erebus' immense ego. Is that all you've got? Dr. Erebus scoffs, still confident in his power. He charges at Dark Emperor Alpha once again, aiming to overwhelm him with a flurry of attacks. Dark Emperor Alpha again casually blocks all of it before, then sending Dr. Erebus flying backwards with a simple combo of a few punches and backhands. You're weak, Dark Emperor Alpha whispers coldly, his voice sending shivers down the spines of everyone watching. No nitrogen monoxide, no. This ends now. Dr. Erebus screams out, powering up, his body overflowing with energy as he ascends to a new level of power compared to his previous self. Dark Emperor Alpha, unfazed by the display of power, merely raises an eyebrow. Oh, is that all you've got? He mocks, sounding unimpressed. Dr. Erebus now, though, is actually able to slightly hurt Dark Emperor Alpha with his punches, forcing Dark Emperor Alpha to actively fight back. You truly think you can defeat me? Dr. Erebus asks, laughing maniacally as he continues to land blows on Dark Emperor Alpha. Dark Emperor Alpha then decides to actually begin trying and then throws Dr. Erebus up into space before then flying up to follow him up into space, moving their battle up into space. Dr. Erebus laughs hysterically as he's thrown through the air, but once he realizes that Dark Emperor Alpha is following him, his laughter turns into a maniacal cackle. You dare bring this battle to my own turf? He asks, his voice echoing through the vacuum of space. Dark Emperor Alpha then punches the laughter right out of him. Shut your stupid mouth. Dark Emperor Alpha yells at him, getting tired of all of the yapping that Dr. Erebus is doing. Dr. Erebus, still laughing despite the punch to his gut, is sent flying again by another punch from Dark Emperor Alpha. You fool, Dr. Erebus exclaims. You don't understand the power I now wield. Before he can continue, though, Dark Emperor Alpha sends him flying once more. Dr. Erebus then grows in power even further, now actually matching Dark Emperor Alpha at his full power. Dark Emperor Alpha then grabs a nearby meteorite with one of his tendrils of darkness and sends it flying at Dr. Erebus, who destroys it with a single punch. The battle between the two titans continues to rage on their power level, matching each other blow for blow. The heroes watch in awe as the destruction caused by their clash reaches unimaginable heights. Even the stars in the sky begin to shatter under the pressure of their titanic struggle. Eventually, Dr. Erebus sends a blast of celestial energy at Dark Emperor Alpha. But then suddenly, the Dark Stone and the corrupted Sacred Relic fuse together into the Dark Relic, which resembles a hand-sized black hole, which then automatically absorbs the blast and then fires it right back at Dr. Erebus. Dr. Erebus is unharmed by the attack, but surprised by the power of the Dark Relic, he decides to end the battle and attempts to destroy the Dark Relic. But Dark Emperor Alpha merely absorbs the attack and begins to glow bright. The Dark Emperor then extends his tendril of darkness and wraps it around Dr. Erebus, immobilizing him. No, nitrogen monoxide. I will win. Behold, Supreme Erebus. Dr. Erebus screams out, powering up to the maximum power that the Celestium crystals within him can withstand. Powering up now from simply Dr. Erebus into now Supreme Erebus, and now he has far greater power than even full power, or even full potential Dark Emperor Alpha. Very well, then, let us see what you've got. Dark Emperor Alpha says calmly, still holding Dr. Erebus in place with his tendril of darkness. His eyes glow brighter and more intense as he focuses on the new form of his adversary. Supreme Erebus then instantly snaps the tendril of darkness and hits Dark Emperor Alpha faster than even he can react, leaving his advisors, his friends, worried for him. You fool, you have no idea what you've done. Dark Emperor Alpha screams at him as he is sent flying away from Dr. Erebus, who now glows brighter and more powerful than ever before. Supreme Erebus then lands a fatal combo on Dark Emperor Alpha faster than he can even react. The Dark Emperor's advisors watch in horror as their once powerful master is being beaten to a pulp by Supreme Erebus. They plead with him to stop, but Supreme Erebus ignores them, his rage and power fueling his every move, until Dark Emperor Alpha is left floating in space, seemingly dead, leading to Supreme Erebus to begin slowly and menacingly floating towards Dark Queen Lilith, Dark King Mordecai, and Dark Lord Lothar. You all saw that. I am supreme, the strongest of the strong. I will have what is mine. Bow down, Supreme Erebus commands, his voice booming across the battlefield. His eyes glow with an unnatural light as he focuses on his new targets. But then, something begins to happen to Dark Emperor Alpha's body, as then, multiple sounds of the snapping of fingers can be heard coming from him, and sounds of what sounds like the cries a child version of himself as a human. Then those same cries, but with the same sort of sound, of a version of him as a child as the Dark Emperor. Then sounds of his various sufferings throughout his entire 1405-year life. And then, the Dark Relic fuses into him, leading to his power to shoot up way beyond not only where it was previously, but now even far, far, far beyond that of even Supreme Erebus. This ends now. An echo of what Erebus himself said earlier in the fight comes from this new, far more powerful version of Dark Emperor Alpha. No, that isn't even enough anymore. Darkest Emperor Alpha, as Supreme Erebus's attention was focused on his former allies, Dark King Mordecai, Dark Lord Lothar, and Dark Queen Lilith. He didn't notice the new threat. Darkest Emperor Alpha, now at the height of his power, his body having fused with the Dark Relic, his mind having absorbed the memories of the child he once was, and all the pain he had ever endured, charges at Supreme Erebus. A single smack of one of his tendrils of darkness knocks Supreme Erebus aside, but when he looks back, he sees an enormous and looming darkness in the place of his former opponent, with the dark tendrils branching out of every part of him like some eldritch abomination or elder god. You, fool! Supreme Erebus cries out, recognizing the danger he's in now. He quickly gathers his power, but Darkest Emperor Alpha is already upon him, his tendrils of darkness binding him in place. Darkest Emperor Alpha then uses his tendrils of darkness to then make Supreme Erebus but a puppet to him. POV changes to that of Dr. Erebus Supreme Erebus. Supreme Erebus finds himself in some dark void, back to being back as he was as a scientist, even before he absorbed the Celestium crystals. Where am I? Dr. Erebus demands to know. Then, in front of him, Darkest Emperor Alpha appears, looming over him like his own shadow. In your own twisted mind, Darkest Emperor Alpha says, "What do you mean?" Dr. Erebus asks, confused. "We are inside of your mind of nothing but destruction and conquest, just like the God Emperors before you." Darkest Emperor Alpha explains to him. Dr. Erebus looks around, dumbfounded. "But how is this possible? I thought I destroyed you. You thought that you did, but so did I. But I have always known that I am destined to change existence to make sure that which happened within my own childhood never happens to anyone else ever again, at any cost, and thus, my own inner power wouldn't let me die." Darkest Emperor Alpha explains, "But how can you be here? The Dark Relic was destroyed." Dr. Erebus insists, struggling against his bindings. "You thought that it was, but rather, it was absorbed into me, and thus the powers of the stupid God Emperors who had used the sacred relic. That was part of it." Darkest Emperor Alpha explains, "But you destroyed the Darkstone as well." Dr. Erebus insists weakly, "It was fused with the sacred relic to form the Dark Relic, which, as I just explained, was absorbed into me." Darkest Emperor Alpha explains to him. Dr. Erebus tries to find some way to escape from the bindings that Darkest Emperor Alpha has him in. But to no avail, he tries to reason with Darkest Emperor Alpha to convince him that their goals are the same. But Darkest Emperor Alpha won't listen. That doesn't even matter, as you have only two choices left. Darkest Emperor Alpha then explains to Dr. Erebus. What do you mean? Dr. Erebus asks, feeling a chill run down his spine. You can either become part of my empire and one of my advisors, as a puppet of course, or you can refuse. And I will just simply kill you right here. Darkest Emperor Alpha explains quite simply to Dr. Erebus. Kill me. Dr. Erebus asks, his voice barely more than a whisper. He thinks for a moment, then asks, and what about your plan to destroy the God Emperors? Won't that change anything? They are already long gone, having ascended 281 years ago, and any remainder of their influences have already been destroyed by me. Darkest Emperor Alpha explains to him. Darkest Emperor Alpha looks at Supreme Erebus, studying him carefully. I have no interest in ruling over a shattered empire. I offer you a chance to live as my puppet. You can still have power, but you will serve my will, or you can choose death. The choice is yours. Dr. Erebus considers this for a moment, his mind racing. On one hand, he has always been driven by the desire for power and control. On the other hand, he has always been a scientist at heart, fascinated by the intricacies of the universe. He wonders if he could use his knowledge and influence within Alpha's empire to further his own research, perhaps even uncovering secrets about the God Emperors that have been hidden for centuries. I will consider your offer, Darkest Emperor Alpha, he says finally. Give me time to think on it. Time is a luxury you happen to lack, Erebus. Darkest Emperor Alpha says quite simply yet darkly. Dr. Erebus swallows hard, realizing that he has no choice but to make a decision quickly. Very well, Darkest Emperor Alpha, I accept your offer. He looks at Alpha with a mixture of respect and fear, but I will expect certain concessions. You are in no position to ask for any concessions, Erebus. Darkest Emperor Alpha says intimidatingly to Dr. Erebus. Dr. Erebus takes a deep breath, steeling himself against Alpha's gaze. Then I will ask for this. I want to be allowed to continue my research. Unimpeded, I have discovered many secrets about the universe, and I believe that there is more to uncover. I want you to give me the resources and freedom to pursue my studies. Fine, you may fill that role, be the head scientist of my empire then. But that will be the role you shall fill until my goal is achieved. Darkest Emperor Alpha says in an instant, having been able to think it through faster than Dr. Erebus could process a single thought. Dr. Erebus looks at Alpha, slightly taken aback by his swift acceptance of his terms. He nods slowly, not wanting to appear overly eager. In that case, I will need access to the most powerful and advanced equipment and resources available. My work cannot be hindered by lack of resources or obstruction. As head of my scientists, you will have those, especially considering my empire will have all of the resources of your former empire, Darkest Emperor Alpha says. In that case, I will need direct access to the most powerful and advanced AI available. My work will require a collaborator of immense intelligence and adaptability, Dr. Erebus says, meeting Alpha's gaze steadily. Well, thankfully for you, my empire has full control over the planet Earth, where the AI Gort still exists, and the AI Sapientia still exists sealed away in some ruins, both in the USA region. Darkest Emperor Alpha explains. Dr. Erebus nods gratefully. I will need direct access to both of those eyes. They are the only ones capable of assisting me in the way that I require. I will leave that to you, Erebus. I now dub you Dark Matter Scientist Erebus. Darkest Emperor Alpha says quite simply, thank you, my liege. Dr. Erebus bows his head in acknowledgement. Now, if I may, I should begin by gathering information on the location of Gort and Sapientia, as well as any other relevant details that may aid in my research. I will leave that all to you, Darkest Emperor Alpha says, as their mental link and the puppeting process ends. Meanwhile, All of that happened within less than a second on the outside.